Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi says she wants to accelerate talks on amending the constitution and reforming imperial succession rules. Speaking in parliament, she calls for cross-party cooperation to revise the imperial house law and advance national debate. President Donald Trump warns Iran it has 10 to 15 days to strike a deal over its nuclear program or face really bad things, as Tehran threatens to retaliate against U.S. bases if attacked amid a major U.S. military buildup in the Middle East. Trump says the talks are progressing but insists Iran must agree to a meaningful settlement. Former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is released from police custody after being arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office over claims he sent confidential government documents to Jeffrey Epstein. Detectives from Thames Valley Police question him for hours as they investigate allegations he passed the files while serving as a trade envoy. Hamas says any political path for Gaza must begin with a total halt to Israeli aggression and the lifting of the blockade following the first meeting of President Donald Trump's Board of Peace. The group adds that any future arrangement must guarantee Palestinians' rights, including freedom and self-determination. South Korea's former President Yoon Suk-yeol apologizes for the hardship caused by his 2024 martial law decree 1 day after being sentenced to life in prison. In a statement released through his lawyer, Yoon says he's deeply sorry for the frustration caused by his actions. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un says the country has moved beyond its worst difficulties as he opens a key party congress in Pyongyang. State media quotes him saying the nation now enters a stage of optimism and confidence after years of hardship. Venezuela's ruling party-led legislature approves a limited amnesty bill that rights groups say does not go far enough to free hundreds of political prisoners. Interim President Delcy Rodriguez releases some detainees while easing oil tensions with Washington. French President Emmanuel Macron clashes with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni after a far-right activist is beaten to death in Lyon. Meloni blames left-wing extremists and calls it a wound for Europe, while Macron urges her to stay in her own lane. Now we start this hour with Europe. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will visit China next week. He'll arrive in Beijing on Wednesday for important talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. According to a government spokesperson, Merz will be welcomed with military honors by Chinese Prime Minister Li Qiang. Later in the afternoon, the Chancellor will meet with President Xi for face-to-face discussions, followed by a dinner. The visit comes as Merz stated the old rule-based international order we once knew no longer exists, and a new great power order is taking shape. Additionally, a business delegation will join Merz, though no details have been given. The Chancellor will also discuss human rights in China and the ongoing Ukraine war. Merz has stressed the goal of finding cooperation where it benefits both sides and will consider Germany's interests alongside partners around the world. The German government spokesperson also confirmed Germany's gas supply remains guaranteed in the event of the Iran conflict. Now for this, we welcome former Ambassador Suresh Goyal. He's a former Indian diplomat, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador Goyal, for joining us again. Good to see you. You know, now in last 3 months, it seems like we have seen a few of European leaders, delegations visit China. How is, the tit-for-tat tariff situation with President Trump drawing Europe closer to China, or do you think it's just this time that we are in?
That's a good question, which actually has puzzled most of the diplomats and the geopolitical strategists around the world. Two things are certain. As it was evident even in the Munich Security Conference, and you quoted from there, where not only Chancellor Merz, but other European leaders also, and major European powers had echoed a similar sentiment that the old international order, as it was known, does not exist anymore, and there is a new order emerging slowly, emerging now. This was a clear recognition of the fact that China, as being quoted by President Trump as G2, is acquiring a profile of its own, which is becoming an important component of the global order now, really. He also, Chancellor Merz, is also reported to have said that international policies or foreign relations and the economic relations cannot be separated anymore. They follow with each other. So if President Trump is going to use tariff to pressurize its known partners, its allies in fact, to pressure them into following American diktats, then naturally the allies have to think of other options and diversify their own strategies. I think the visit to China is an exploration of the idea to develop those other alternative leverages, alternative connections, which can come to the rescue or which can actually then balance the pressure or the tactics from Trump on these allies. Yes.
And what will be in the priority for Germany's delegation and China? And do you think that German Chancellor would try to talk about Ukraine as well?
I'm sure Chancellor Merz will talk about Ukraine. They will talk about Palestine, Gaza Strip, what is happening there. They will talk about South China Seas. I'm sure he will talk about Taiwan. I'm sure he will talk about Southeast Asia. There will be general discussion on all the global issues where China is involved, and particularly where China and German interest or the European interest, they intersect. So there will be discussions on all those issues, but more importantly, I think Chancellor Merz is going to find common ground between China and Germany where they can cooperate. It could be the situations, the political situations in the Middle East. It could be Iran. It could be economy. Of late, China is actually beginning to substitute German exports, and German industry is actually rather wary about Chinese exports now. So they will discuss about these possibilities to see how they can actually come to accommodate each other without hurting each other's interest.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Ambassador Goel, for sharing that. Now, moving on, French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has announced that his government intends to criminalize calls for the destruction of any country, a move aimed at combating rising anti-Semitism. Speaking at the annual conference of the Representative Council of French Jewish Institutions in Paris, Lecornu has revealed that the controversial bill proposed by Caroline Yadan would be introduced to the French Parliament by April 2026. The bill seeks to fight renewed forms of anti-Semitism by banning calls for the destruction of any state and expanding the crime of defending terrorism. The French Prime Minister specifically highlighted that calls for the destruction of Israel, including the phrase "from the river to the sea," would no longer be tolerated, as such rhetoric endangers lives. He also noted that while criticism of Israeli policies is legitimate, he has condemned the current Israeli government's actions in the West Bank, which he describes as a violation of international law. Now we welcome back Ambassador Suresh Goel. He's a former Indian diplomat, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador Goel, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, do you think that this will make any difference, this new law would make any difference in the free speech right of France. How do you think this will be received by French people?
I think this anti-Semitic law is a kind of a broad brush sweep to essentially just send a message to people in France that anti-Semitism will not be tolerated. But as we know, in France, there have been a huge number of protests and expression of support for the Palestinian rights. And what is happening in Gaza has led to several loud protests, really. Uh, and obviously, Israel is not happy about those kind of protests taking place in France. However, France also has a huge Arab population who are now French citizens. And they have their own views on what is happening in Gaza. In fact, most of the Europe is rather against what is happening in Gaza. So I think by passing the law, France is sending a message that, look, we are not in favor of attack on Israel or against the Jews, the vocal protests, etc., etc. At the same time, I don't think that they will go beyond a point to impose those kind of restrictions on their own citizens when they're protesting on what is happening in Gaza.
Right. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Ambassador Goel for sharing that insight. Now moving on to Thailand, Quentin Griffiths, who is co-founder of the British fast fashion retailer ASOS, has died after falling from the balcony in Pattaya, Thailand. Thai police has confirmed the 58-year-old fell from the 17th floor of an apartment building on February 9th. Initial investigations suggest suicide with no signs of foul play. CCTV footage showed no one entered Griffith's apartment where he lived alone. Police found documents related to lawsuits from his former wife, a Thai national, which may have contributed to his distress. The body has been sent for an autopsy. Griffiths co-founded ASOS in 2000 and remained a major shareholder after leaving the company. Now for this, we welcome Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at the Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, what do we know so far about this case?
Yeah, indeed, very few information. Sorry.
Yes.
This is Griffin's case. Indeed, he is under the two ongoing court cases. So that's why the second wife death, this is under the huge stress. But in the court, this means that court-related suicide could happen, but at the same time, not only the suicide, if someone kill him, that is also the problem. So that's why this is mysterious death during the two ongoing court cases. But at the same time, so far the information is very limited. So in this case, we need to wait investigation.
Yes, indeed. We will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, moving on to Jeffrey Epstein's estate has agreed to settle a class action lawsuit offering up to $35 million to resolve claims that two of Epstein's advisors, Darren Indyke and Richard Kahn, has aided his sex trafficking operation. The lawsuit, filed in 2024, accuses the two men of creating a network of corporations and bank accounts that concealed Epstein's criminal activities. While neither Indyke nor Kahn has admitted wrongdoing, they agreed to settle to bring closure to any potential claims against the estate. This follows previous settlements, including $121 million from a restitution fund and $49 million in additional settlements. The deal still requires approval from a judge. Now we welcome back Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Doctor, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, is paying, this lawsuit and offering of up to $35 million to resolve these kind of claims. Is it enough for justice? What about the justice then, if these all big cases which are coming out again and again related to Jeffrey Epstein? Isn't this unfair to the victims?
In this case, still this is under investigation and the situation is escalating, so growing. So that's why enough or not, maybe this is not enough, but the case-by-case basis, simply we cannot identify yet. But because victim of the Epstein cases is more than 1,000 people are expecting. So that's why 1,000 means that 1,000 cases is different cases exist. So some part of them are very serious damages in their life, of course, but some are a little bit lucky one is exist. We do not know yet. So that's why the 1,000 kind of cases exist if the 1,000 is a victim. And so that's why this case, is this enough? Of course, doubtful. But at the same time, even if still this is under investigation, some are moving because of the limited of time, because of they need to hurry. So that's why this is the case. But enough or not, maybe after the investigation and reveal the total size of the crime will be published. And case by case basis, this case is this amount is proper, but that case is not so. Something could happen after the investigation, and this investigation hasn't finished because size of the crime is too huge. So that's why enough or not, very difficult to identify just now. That is the situation.
Yes, indeed. But you know, if Jeffrey Epstein's all these things are being settled with money, right? What would happen to the way or the reputation of US's justice system from all over the world? Because this case, all the cases related to Jeffrey Epstein, is not just unfolding in US, it's also unfolding. While it's unfolding in US, it's having discussions, or it's opening, you know, different scrutiny for different political elites worldwide.
In this case, how to punish them is very controversial because Jeffrey Epstein has already dead. So there is no punishment we can imagine from now because he have already dead. But at the same time, something should be prepared for the victims and survivors, and in this case, for their life, starting from the money is a very basic idea. And if there is another proper method to fulfill something, compensate something in their life, they suffer. But simply, we cannot imagine what kind of compensation is possible. So that's why in this case, money is the only way that people can imagine. And so how much is matter. But still, this case is under investigation means that size of the money itself, we cannot identify whether the proper or not. But that is the current situation, and so size of the crime is big. This means that time the investigation need is also long.
Yes, and do we know anything about these individuals, Darren Indyke and Richard Kahn? Who were they?
Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for sharing that. And last but not least, you know, once again, how is this Jeffrey Epstein case unfolding? Is this also going to be affecting the image that people have towards the democracy and transparency of U.S. And its institutions?
Of course, it relies on the investigation and the punishment, because for a long time the people hasn't realized this case, and that's why now is the time to punish. But at the same time, still under investigation means that for a long time this crime has happened. This means that the police hasn't identified, despite the victim was 1,000. That itself is very shameful for the law and order system in the United States, and not only in the United States, British, Norway, or France, or the other country, all of the other countries, why the police hasn't identified this problem, despite the size is so big. And so that is a very important question. And it is true that this Epstein is rich, and this Epstein has many connections, influential connections. So that's why if this influential connection prevents to reveal this crime, they are also the criminals, and the size of this crime will be very big. So this is not just a small scandal. Of course, people know this is a big scandal, but indeed, big is too small to, indeed, huge scandal, we can say. And but how big, we haven't identified yet.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for sharing that insight with us on NewsX World. We have a breaking news. X has filed an appeal with the General Court of the European Union, challenging the €120 million fine imposed by the European Commission in December last year. This marks the first judicial challenge to a fine under the EU's Digital Services Act. The European Commission has imposed the fine for breaches related to transparency and procedural obligations under the DSA. X argues that the fine violates its right to due process, claiming proprietorial bias from EU officials. The specific breaches cited include the use of deceptive blue check marks, failure to maintain an ad repository, and barriers to data access for researchers. Now we move on to our tech news. NVIDIA is reportedly close to investing up to $30 billion in OpenAI as part of a massive new funding round. Sources say the deal could be one of the largest private tech investments ever, deepening the partnerships between the world's leading AI chipmaker and the creator of ChatGPT. The move highlights NVIDIA's strategic push to secure its position at the center of the global AI boom, as demand for advanced computing power continues to surge. If finalized, the investment would significantly boost OpenAI's valuation and signal intensifying competition among big tech firms racing to dominate artificial intelligence. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.